As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on land that was once nurtured and cherished by the First Nation people of this region, the Haudenosaunee, and the people known as the Neutrals before them. May we continue to tend this cherished land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. It's been said that Unitarian Universalism is the religion that puts faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and friendship. In that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we will strive to be with one another. Please join me in speaking our covenant. Together, we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. We begin our gathering by lighting the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our flaming chalice represents the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment to foster more compassion and justice in a hurting world. Please join me in speaking the words, "We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sight of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together." Each of us carries with us into this worship time, cares and concerns, joys and sorrows. Together we create the container where we can put down our burdens, knowing that they are held gently by this gathered community. For those joining us virtually, I invite you to give voice to that which is on your heart, or perhaps type it into the chat in the live stream. For those here in the chapel, I invite you to come forward and place a stone or a shell in the table labyrinth in recognition of that which is on your heart. I'm going to light the candle for our larger community. This candle is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, and he will be far away, but here with us today. I'd like to introduce Reverend Pat McLaughlin, who is a graduate of Meadville Lombard Theological School and a former classmate of Reverend Michelle Buheitz. Patrick is a lifelong UU and a former trustee of the UUA. He grew up moving around the U.S. and overseas, and while he thinks of himself vaguely as a Westerner, he is actually an adult, third culture kid, having spent his preteen and teen years in Australia and Belgium. He currently lives in New Hampshire with his wife, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. He has strong opinions about democracy. It's crucial, and we're doing it wrong. Reverend Patrick will read our call to worship.
We gather to remember who we have been, who we are, and who we aspire to become, as individuals, as a community, and as a faith. We come together to remember what is worthy of our attention and concern. We gather committed to being welcoming for all people and to being a safe and loving community for people of all identities. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever you put your faith in, whoever you love, you are welcome here. We are a faith devoted to love, to justice, to exploration, and to reason. We are a faith committed to helping others, to healing the world, and to working to build the beloved community. Come, let us worship together.
Let's join in singing Building Bridges, and that can be found in your teal hymnal, page 1023.
Between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could
like to share a nursery rhyme that you may hear again today for all ages. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail.
Our reading is First Principles by Mark Bellatini. And at the end of it, it invites us into silence. And so after the reading, we will have a brief moment of silence and then a longer meditative period with some music for you to contemplate. First Principles. There are red rocks in the Gobi Desert I will never see, and blue waves near the Seychelles Islands I will never gaze upon. Songs are now being sung in a cafe in Singapore, which will never dance in my heart. Rice cakes eaten yesterday by Ainu grandmothers on the northernmost island of Japan will never cross my lips. The earthy scent of the dark mushrooms growing in some of the forests of the Andes will never melt on my tongue. The texture of Van Gogh's painting The Potato Eaters in Amsterdam will never be rough under my roving fingertips. My feet will never walk over Super Bowl fields. My sigh will never be heard at the North Pole. The world is mostly outside me. It's bigger than I am, greater than I am. It's unaware of me speaking here, and I will never know the millionth part of it. I am simply me, and others are who they are, and together, each of us, small fragments of a great world, a great whole. But no one is really alone, even if they feel lonely. All of us are together, different, yet woven intricately into the whole, each one a facet of reality, and no more. Each one important and no less. Come, silence, and bless us with a sense of our intrinsic worth.
I will show you hidden things you have not known. I will show you hidden things you have not known. I will show
extremely important things as children. And then we often ignore them and discount them. This nursery rhyme goes back to at least the 14th century. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a horseshoe nail. We are told that the little things matter. A love note tucked into my suitcase. The cap that I left off the toothpaste tube. These are little things, and yet they are the things that matter. Did the car get left with no gas in the tank again? Are dirty clothes left dumped on the floor? The hug, the quick kiss, or just the words, "I love you," as someone hurries out the door. They accumulate, good and bad. They accumulate. And it is the little things that matter, the small fragments of that greater whole. Or so we're told. But is that really true, generally true? A study done at Harvard suggests that it is how human psychology works. And as surprising as it often sounds to us, people are more likely to get over huge affronts and insults and personal injuries that occur once or just rarely than they are to deal well with daily annoyances. If you've wondered why some marriages survive a horrible affair and then go on to succeed, while others collapse amidst vague complaints about dishes in the sink, this is why. We find ways to deal with major stresses, but we don't spend the time and effort to find ways to handle the injuries from the small problems that actually cause us more stress in the long run. It's the Little Things is a song by Robert Earl Keen, and the words of the chorus go, "It's the little things, the little bitty things, like the way that you remind me that I've been growing soft. It's the little things, the itty bitty things. It's the little things that piss me off." Little annoyances grate away at us day after day. Collectively, they are more horrifying than our big problems. A little cut, a splinter, ouch, but it's a minor thing. Being killed now, that's a big thing. But if you want real horror, you suffer the death of 1,000 cuts, a hideous form of torture. The little things matter. So maybe this is true in our heads and the little things matter in here, but what about elsewhere? Well, if we look at physical health, the best advice is that we need to go and get some mild, regular exercise. We don't need to go push big weights, and we don't need to go run marathons, but frequent, light exercise makes a major difference. And the same is true of eating, as I know. It's not the rare meal where we overindulge wildly that led to obesity as a national problem. It's that most of us eat what has become habitual indulgence most of the time. And just a few hundred extra calories a day turns into pounds of extra weight at the end of the year, year after year. And we can't quite figure out where it came from. Just a few calories a day made the difference. Little things. Little things do matter, and we know that. And it's what we tell our children. It's implicit when we say things like, what would it be like if everyone did that? Well, we live in a world where through greed and ignorance and a lack of understanding, we've all done that. The only way back is by applying the wisdom that we offer children. Don't do that. Because if everyone does, or just most people, the results are bad. And Gandhi told us, whatever you do will be insignificant, but it is very important that you do it. And it's not just true for our minds and our bodies. When we look at energy use and pollution in this country and the world, trying to see how we can avoid the mass extinction of many more species and stop radical changes in the climate, the big things aren't enough. The big things aren't enough. Although those things are critical and must be done. But drastically cutting industrial emissions, recapturing heat and waste products for recycling, all of it absolutely necessary, and it's still not enough. The answer is a conundrum that unless we all do our own inconsequentially tiny parts, using less, being efficient, recycling, cutting back, and so on, we cannot possibly make the numbers that we need. And yet any one of us can very honestly look at the sheer size of the change and say that doing our part doesn't look like it would make any difference at all. So listen to Gandhi again, because he must have thought this important. He said it more than once, each time in slightly different ways. Whatever you do may seem insignificant to you, but it is most important that you do it. He's not alone in that counsel. For Henry David Thoreau, there were no inconsequential actions. And he wrote, "It matters not how small the beginning may seem to be. What is once well done is done forever." It is supremely important that the little things get done. A kingdom is lost for the want of a nail. The thing well done is done forever, no matter how small. Fine, you say. The little things are important when I'm dealing with a loved one and for my own health, and perhaps we can even change and save the world. But certainly there are issues, things where what matters aren't little things. Maybe. Because a lot of big things turn out to just be labels for smaller things that are repeated or connected to each other. Like the world. The world is a label for all of those things. Oceans and continents and plants and animals and people. All of it together. It's not one big thing. It's innumerable smaller things. Many of them made up of even more parts and pieces. Now, it's not that the big things don't matter, because of course they matter. Strip mining and mountaintop removal are not things that can be corrected if we each just dig out a little coal, doing it ourselves, or dig out a little less. But if the demand for raw materials drops because we use less, change our ways, recycle more, because we use less power or use greener power, we conserve power, we adopt sustainable sources of power, then strip mining will be greatly affected. It might just become economically unsustainable, and presto, an end to coal use because other, better, cheaper options outcompete it, even as we learn to live more efficiently. But what about other big issues, like human issues, say racial discrimination? Again, big problems are made up of millions and millions of little ones. Lena Williams is the author of It's the Little Things, Everyday Interactions That Anger, Annoy, and Divide the Races. And she writes, too much still remains unsaid and too much assumed, imagined, or inferred. Blacks as well as whites are guilty of making false assumptions about the other group's motives. Resentments over seemingly small slights are felt by both. She observes that when it comes to racial matters, perception is reality. Perception is reality. Racial misunderstanding is mutual. An innocent gesture can be misconstrued as a calculated insult. And I'll just add that a calculated insult can also be disguised, cloaked as an innocent gesture. It is the little things. Those racial clashes, those little ones, are often now referred to as microaggressions. It's little things, it's unconscious gestures that carry meaning in one group's eyes that another group may be oblivious to or unaware of. It's the behavior of counterhelp, perhaps confused as to who is next, or perhaps actually racist, as they ask, who's next? And turn to a white woman instead of a black man. I have heard that story told. A large black man who told me that sometimes it made him so angry that he would just leave, and that at other times he'd just stand there and watch and wait and see if it happened again and again. If the black man somehow became invisible and just ended up at the end of the line, or how many times it would happen before he was noticed. And that's something that each and every one of us can do something about. Just pay some attention. We're not alone, even if we feel lonely. And you can do this alone. If you're not the first person at a busy counter, then notice who is, so that you can help that overworked, harassed counter help out. If you're the one unsure as to who is next, look around and ask. And pay attention to the reactions, because there are people who feel entitled to go first regardless. But one of the noxious things that people of color report is that they're sometimes somehow invisible, and people somehow don't notice them. So perhaps make a point of asking the question in a way where more than one person can comfortably answer it. Or maybe directly ask that person of color, do you know who's first? Who's next here? It is the little things that matter. It's the unconscious, unknowing affronts and the small social slights that might be intentional and might be racist. It's the assumption that that well-dressed Black person is hotel staff, not a hotel patron. Little things. But when they happen all the time, they're not little things. They become the death of 1,000 cuts. And they perpetuate and feed the tension and the chasm of racial misunderstanding and mistrust. It's important to note that there are certainly, unquestionably, some level of these experiences that are accident and social miscues and just the grit in the wheels of life. But the life experience of Black Americans says this happens to them constantly, every day. Somehow they're the ones overlooked. Somehow they're the ones being stopped for driving. It's not just accidental. And so Black Americans are legitimately hyper-aware of such events, trying to distinguish between the intentional, racist slight and the common social misstep. And understandably, this experience makes many of these people feel overwhelmed and crazy. It's literally unhealthy for them. It makes them literally more likely to become physically ill. It's part of why people of color die younger in this country. Now, are there big issues in racial relations? Sure, of course. We can point to events in Ferguson and New York, Baltimore, Los Angeles, well, everywhere. But they may really be collections of little things that have just avalanched, and there was some event that triggered. And after all those slights and injuries, someone lost it. If we cannot become aware of the little things and start to address them, we will never get around to the seemingly big ones. The little things matter. They matter to us. They happen to us. They matter too much to overlook them. They matter too much to ask other people to overlook them again. We face lives and a world full of challenges, things that can sometimes seem so overwhelming. How can we stop global climate change? How can we solve the vast Hydra-like problem of pollution? How can we lose weight, get healthy, change our eating habits, and on and on? How can we do these things when we're only individuals, tired, living busy lives in such a huge and overwhelming world? So many demands on us. The great Canadian poet Robert Service advised, "Be master of your petty annoyances and conserve your energies for the big, worthwhile ones." It isn't the mountain ahead that wears you out. It's the grain of sand in your shoe. Little things matter, but here is the good news. That terrible burden, the one that you cannot imagine how to bear, that thing you can't see any way to do, the burden of saving the world, it's not yours. You don't have to do it all yourself, and in fact, you can't. You can't possibly do it all. All you can do is what you actually can do. The little things that are completely within your grasp. It's supremely important that you do those little inconsequential things that couldn't possibly make a difference, because in fact, they do. Bit by bit, we bend the arc of history toward love and justice. We bend it by hanging on and swinging hard. And sometimes we're shocked to find other people trying to bend it the other way, the wrong way, which only makes it all the more important that you do what you can. The light that gets switched off, the plastic bag not used, the handmade gift, the hug as you come and go, saying, I love you. Something bought, used, or selected because it's organic, it's locally produced, it's minimally packaged, and the packaging is actual recycled material, and it's recyclable, and you recycle it. Make sure that someone waiting at the counter before you gets served first. Many of the big things will either fix themselves or at least get much better, and perhaps be dismantled, fall apart into smaller things, simply by our attending carefully to the little things, by not letting those little things slide. And there's better news too. While each of us can probably do little more than a much better job of dealing with all the little things in our lives that collectively add up to big things, together, we can do more. I know this is true. I've seen it. There are congregations, Unitarian Universalist and other, that banded together and decided to offer sanctuary to people who were at risk of being deported back to terrible conditions, and often places where people would have killed them. No individual could have done that. If you or I had taken in some refugee, the police would have come. Immigration would have arrived and arrested that individual, charged us with a crime. But when a congregation does it and puts its building, its church, its sanctuary in that space in between, collectively, we've been able to protect people for years, to help them get through a dysfunctional, maliciously used immigration service, and we have saved lives. Together, we can do more. What Margaret Mead suggested is true. A small group of thoughtful people could change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Howard Zinn put a similar thought this way: small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. A mighty river, the Mississippi perhaps, starts somewhere as just a tiny stream, something that a small child can jump back and forth across, wade through. It's just a little thing. But those streams come together. Little things coming together become big things, bit by bit, joining with each other. Here, this congregation, in this congregation, you can make a difference. And bit by bit, joining this congregation's efforts with those of other congregations, we will make a difference. Bit by bit, joining the efforts of our faith with the efforts of other faiths, a powerful stream can flow. Each of us can never be that river, not alone. Singly, none of us, but drop by drop together, that mighty river of justice is ours to make flow. Little thing by little thing, we can build bridges to a better world. We can each make the world a better place, and together we can actually change it. Because we ought to. Because we need to. Because we want to. And because we are called to. The thing that you do may be nothing more significant than just forging a horseshoe nail, just a nail. But the battle won because of it may well be the one that saves a whole kingdom. The insignificant thing that you can do, it is very important that you do it. That is how we are made whole. May it be so.
Our closing hymn is Our World is One World, and that is in the Gray Hymnal 134. It will be up on the screen playing. You can enjoy it or you can join in, whatever your choice is.
Our world is one world. What touches one affects us all. The seas that wash us round about, the clouds that cover us, the rains that fall. Our world is one world. The thoughts we think affect us all. The way we build our attitudes with love or hate, we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world. Its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
Thank you for joining our gathering today. I hope you have been inspired and uplifted by sharing this time together. We can support the work and mission of this congregation with your financial contributions. For those in our chapel today, you will find baskets at the back to receive your gifts. For those participating virtually, I invite you to take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link or text a gift to 833-987-1968. Please join me in extinguishing our chalice with these familiar words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my mind.
Friends, as we go forth, let us be aware of each other and our bonds to each other here within this congregation, within our larger faith, the whole world, and the unimaginably vast universe beyond the thin, blue, airy shell of Earth's atmosphere.
Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend.
May we be attentive to the little things that make up our lives and sustain us, those that lie resonating powerfully between us, unseen, the things that we build peace and the beloved community with. This is a truth. Everything matters, including you. Everything matters, including you. Go in love, go in peace. Be makers of peace.